Okay. We're ready to rock and roll?
We have Mitch back with us again.
Off vacation? Yes, off vacation. Okay, so today we're going to spend some time going over the new features of iOS 9. And I have to get a raise of hands for how many of you have a new iPhone 6S or 6S Plus? Just two. Okay. Because some of these features are only available for the 6S and the 6S Plus. So I'll sort of keep that in mind as we're going through here. One of the questions that I've gotten, and actually Vicki had the question, I couldn't remember exactly how to do it because the first one that had the question was my wife, and that is on the keyboard, it's now caps, and then it turns to small as soon as you hit the you don't have to hit the shift key. It just automatically turns. The keyboard used to be all caps, but it would change to small automatically if it was the second letter of a word.
So what's the difference?
Not the
now?
keyboard, the text that you're typing. The keyboard always used to stay big.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The
Right.
keyboard always used to stay big, but the text would change. Now the keyboard changes as well. And a lot of people, some people don't like this. I know my wife didn't like it. What did you do to my keyboard? Was the response that I got. And Vicki emailed me and said, I don't like this. The guy talks about it in one of the videos, but I want to show you real quick, if you don't like it, how to change it, and how to change it back. And the way you do that is you go to, and right after I show this, I'll go through the announcements. You go to Settings, here at the bottom, and you go into General, and then you go to Accessibility. And then you go down to Keyboard and Show Lowercase is on, and it's on by default when you upgrade to iOS 9. So if you want the old keyboard where the keyboard's all caps but it types both ways, but you just like your keyboard to be in all caps, then you would want to turn this off. Okay? Any questions on that? Vicki?
No, not on that, Mitch, but just one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I don't know if you're going to later on, but since you mentioned by default, I have found when you update, it turns on Bluetooth, which can really sap your battery. So if you've updated and you don't want Bluetooth, just double check to see if it's on or not.
Okay. Good point. One thing that I'll mention, I know George can attest to this. I'm testing out the bigger phone this year. I have about 3 or 4 more days if I want to take it back and get the smaller one, because they let you do that within 14 days. These are still hard to get in this size. I like it. It's just that it's fine when I got these cargo pants on, but when I got long pants on and a dress shirt, I mean, it's like, where do you put this thing? But the point I wanted to make is the battery life on this thing is phenomenal. It's like 1.5 times what the regular phone is. And that's been written up and documented in some articles. So if you're looking for extended battery life, this is the way to go. And you can confirm that as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So anybody here, I skipped over the announcement, anybody here for the very first time? Good, well then we can skip over the announcements. Oh, here comes somebody. Anybody here for the very first time? Is that you? Who is that? You're here for the very first time?
No.
No, okay, good. All right, we have all returning people.
Could you repeat what you said? Why is the larger phone worth so much?
It's got a bigger battery.
Oh,
Even though it's got a bigger screen, it does have a much bigger battery. And if you Google that, battery life of the large phone versus the 6S Plus versus the 6, you'll see that there's...
I have a 6 Plus now. Does it also have a larger battery?
It does, but it's even more of a distinction now. Yes.
Another difference used to be, and I think still is, that the camera is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, the camera, the camera is better in the sense that it is
Better stabilization.
better stabilization, it has motion stabilization. That's really the only difference. I actually read, if you're
It's a
pretty,
big difference.
if you're pretty steady, there's no difference, but if you're moving at all, big difference.
Is it the same camera in the 6S and 6S Plus?
It's the same camera, but this one has image stabilization.
More features,
Yeah.
but the same increased resolution?
Yes. Yes.
Is it, Pam here?
Hi, Pam.
Hi, is it much heavier? You notice?
Both of them are slightly heavier than the preceding models. I noticed this being heavier because it's the first time I've had the bigger phone. But they're selling, I think it's about 60%.
I don't notice the difference.
But aren't they selling about 60% of the big ones this year? And last year was about 50-50, and this year a lot of people are coming in with the smaller phones and going right for the bigger ones. I like it. Like I say, I like it quite a bit. I mean, for a woman, I think it's perfect because you got a place to put it. You throw it right in your purse. Now, my wife has some difficulty with holding things up. She's got some muscle difficulties in her arms, and so for her, this would be too heavy. She would not like holding this up. But other than that, I mean, it's a little heavier. Even the small one's a little bit heavier. And the reason it's heavier is because there's an extra layer of, in the glass area for the haptic touch, which he'll talk about in here. But it's not that much heavier. If you go small to small and large to large, both of them are a little heavier than the newer ones, but not that much heavier. Yes.
Well, I see you have the iPad and the iPhone Plus, 6 Plus.
Right.
Would you say that you use your iPhone a lot more than you're using your iPad as far as just general usage?
Somewhat too early to tell. I think I probably will. I know I use my phone and my iPad a lot less now that I have the watch. Because a lot of times I'll just see where, so-and-so texted me. In a minute, this is going to pop up with a message that I put on here. One of the really neat features, well, let me get into this a little bit. Go back over to here. There is a lynda.com tutorial on iOS 9. There's only one as of yesterday. He says another one's coming, but it hasn't been released yet. And the one that was released by NetBoom, I went through a couple of those videos and I didn't like it. It really wasn't his usual thorough review of iOS 9 or iOS whatever. I don't know, did you look at it yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought, in this case, Linda was better.
It was better, yes, absolutely. So this Nick Bryars does a really good job. It's iOS new features, and I just want to highlight a couple things here. One thing is on the passcode. When you go to iOS 9, They want you to use a 6-digit passcode. You don't have to, you can still use a 4. But they recommend that you use a 6. If you get a new phone, it'll say enter your passcode, and it'll ask, I believe it asks for a 6-digit number. I was already using a 7-digit, so it didn't bother me at all. But when you go into settings, you can change that back to a 4-digit if you want to. If you just go to the passcode area, and I know he talks about that in the one movie. So that's different. Siri has gotten a lot better, and you can do a lot more things with Siri. And I'll go over some of those new things. The Hey Siri thing really seems to work well, and I think I'll use that. Don was asking which things that I like the best, and I like the Hey Siri quite a bit. I don't use it a lot yet, but I think I'm going to use it more and more. The keyboard, the one feature of the keyboard we already talked about, moving text around on the keyboard. Here's a reminder that I set up with Siri. And it was a reminder to look at this email. So it just comes up on the screen, and I'll open up the email. And this was it. It was this email from Don. He was asking me a question about killer features.
Did you have to have that email open to tell Siri to remember it?
Yeah, so I'll show you how this works. So here's one that Vicki sent me. Never mind, she figured it out about the lowercase thing. So, but if I wanted to, what I would do is just hold this down. Hey Siri, remind me about this in 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll remind you.
Okay? Now, in 5 minutes, you're going to see this screen pop up. And that's pretty neat. You can do it on a web page as well. And I always saw it make one mistake. I mean, I was on a web page, and it might have been either on an eBay web page or some kind of a shopping web page. And I said, remind me about this. And I was playing with it, testing it out. And when it reminded me, it went to the home page rather than the page I was on. So there were some little quirks, but most of the time this works very well.
So is it supposed to open the page?
It will open that page. So, and you can do it like I could go to a different one. I go to. I was going to do this draft anyhow later, so it was a draft that I just did. It was an announcement of this meeting, so I could go. Hey Siri, remind me about this in 1 minute.
Okay, I'll remind you.
Okay, so that'll pop up in about a minute.
Where do you do the split screen? I'm gathering that's threads to that. Those are threads of that, or is that not a thread? That's just your emails and the split
That's just the
screen?
email on the iPad is that way.
On the iPad, can you do that here too?
No, only on this one.
Oh, so that's that's an S6S
Plus,
feature.
on the plus, if it's in this mode,
Right.
you can.
Obviously, no
you can do
split
it.
screen for anything less than 6S Plus.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Normally, you're going to see your emails, you'll see your emails like this. That's how you probably see them. Okay? If you have one of these, the plus, one of the differences is it will show it like an iPad if you have it in this mode.
Automatic? Just turn,
Automatic.
just,
See it?
right? No settings or anything?
Now, see how this came up? And it came up on both devices. This was to remind me in a minute. Oh, okay, well, let's open this up. And I don't know why it's taking so long to open it up. Yes.
How long can
Siri remember something, could you ask her to remind you to do something tomorrow or the next day?
Oh, yes.
Just today?
Yes, yeah. You can do all kinds of things with the Siri. You can, I don't know why it's failing to activate this. Well,
So after my wife gets her hair done, like in a week, I can ask Siri to remind me to tell her how nice her hair looks.
You can.
Well, that's going to be a big help then.
You can. Actually, when your wife says to you, I'm going to the hairdresser today, you can say, remind me at 2 o'clock this afternoon to tell her how wonderful her hair is.
Because she always walks in and says, how do I look? I said, maybe you look.
Well, my wife always says, you didn't say anything about my hair.
Right.
But when I come in after getting a haircut, I say, you didn't say anything about my hair. Oh, I forgot you were going to get it cut.
But you got to ask Siri.
You can do,
Bookmarks?
yeah, you can do bookmarks. You can ask Siri to make a bookmark. I believe you can do that. You can say, I can put in there, remind me to call George when I get home. And it'll put a reminder in, and when I pull my driveway, it'll pop up to call him.
Can you make it more complex, like 10 minutes after I got home?
I don't know if you can do that.
I might forget it by the time I got
Forget between the car and the front door, yes. Remind me when I'm sitting down with my cold beer.
That'd be an interesting adjustment in the future. Maybe put your age in there and based on your age. If you're 92.
Yeah, now what you can do, yeah, I mean, if you're,
Reminder and a reminder.
I mean, I know we're all sharp
A
as
week later.
I know we're all sharp as a tack in here, but just in case, you could remind me of my birthday every year. You wouldn't miss one. Okay, so here's the other one on Don. Let me see if this one will open up.
These guys are bad.
Or this was Vicky's, yeah. So there it is, it pops right up. So this is something that I can see where I would use. Yes, Don?
Yeah, I thought that Hey Siri was only if your phone was plugged in somewhere. and
No, that's the
across
change.
room.
That's the change in iOS. Good point. It used to be, hey, Siri only worked if you was plugged in, you were on the Wi-Fi. Now it works all the time.
Well, then you shouldn't have to, but you still have to push the button? I mean, the home button?
Yeah, you still have to push the button.
But you don't have to talk. I thought you just push the button and Siri comes up, and then you just say what it is you want.
microphone.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
So you don't have to say, hey Siri.
No, you have to say, hey, Siri. I think that there's a, no, you have to say, hey, Siri.
No, but I think Don, what he was
Yeah.
insinuating, at some point, I thought you could just say, hey Siri, and it jumped right into,
Right, when it's
It
plugged
does.
in.
Without
But can't you just
without touching the
hold down the
phone.
home button
without
and Siri
pressing the
pop up?
button.
You might be able to do that. Let me just, hey, Siri. Yeah. Comes right up.
Without touching the phone.
Without touching the phone. As long as the phone is on. Now, if my phone is locked, I think I don't know if I have it set. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. I've got mine that Siri doesn't come on unless the phone's unlocked. But that's a setting.
Right. But otherwise, if you say you're using your phone, or even not using your phone, you should just have to push the button, even if the phone's in your pocket. Because I do that all the time, turn on Bluetooth, turn off Bluetooth.
Yeah.
It's just that you have now, it just vibrates and it shows the little thing on the bottom instead of making a noise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to push the button. Okay. So I'm going to go on. I do want to play a few of his videos, and I've been through every one of them. They're really good. It's really good, but I'll select a few here. Since we're talking about Siri, let's give that a good work over.
In this movie,
Oops. What happened here? It's not liking us.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Ah, picture on picture, that's what it was, okay. Okay, here we go.
In this movie, I want to look at some of the new voice commands that you can use in Siri. The intent with the new voice commands is to give Siri an improved understanding of natural speech and a deeper integration with some of the apps on your device. One of the new voice commands integrates with the Reminders app. So as an example, I'm going to go into my email where I have this message that I really need to respond to, but I'm busy right now. So to be safe, I can use Siri to set up a reminder. So I'm going to activate Siri in a second, of course just by holding down the home button for a few seconds. Now, if you're using an iPhone, you will not hear a sound effect to tell you that Siri is activated. Instead, you'll see the screen change to the new Siri screen, and you'll feel a quick vibration on the phone. But you will hear the sound effect if you use Siri on an iPad. Okay, so I'll activate Siri and say, remind me of this at 6 o'clock tonight.
Okay, I'll remind you.
And so it sets up that reminder. I'm going to hit the home button to get out of this, and I'll hit the home button one more time just to go to the home screen. So let's look at another example. Maybe I receive a text message. I'll take a look at that, and I need to send Steve some information about our upcoming camping trip. So I could activate Siri and say, remind me of this when I get home.
Okay, I'll remind you when you arrive at home.
And now that reminder is set. So again, I'll hit the home button to get out of that, and the home button again to go back to the home screen. Now, one more example. I'm going to switch over to a web page. And I'm doing some research here about Yosemite National Park where we're going to go camping. So I could ask Siri to remind me of this in 4 hours or in 30 minutes or something like that. But I want to see what these notifications look like when they pop up on the screen. So I would never do this normally, but I'm going to do this. Remind me of this in 10 seconds.
Okay, I'll remind you.
So now that notification is set, I'm going to close this web page and go to the home screen. And this is what it looks like when you get one of those timed notifications. So I could mark this reminder as completed, but what's really great here is that it reminds me of the thing that I asked it to remind me of, whether it's an email message or a web page or whatever. And it will link me back over to that thing. So I have this button here that says Open Safari. When I tap that, it'll open Safari, and then it will load the web page that I asked it to remind me of. So these reminders are all stored in the Reminders app. So let's look at that and take a look. And I'm going to go into the Reminders category here, and I can see all 3 of those reminders that I asked it to remind me of. I'm going to tap on the Reminders tab up here at the top just to go back to all of these separate tabs, and I want to look at the Scheduled category. So the 2 reminders that I asked it to remind me of according to a specific time are listed here on the Scheduled category, but if I jump back over to the General Reminders, they're all here. So I can set up reminders according to a time, or I can set up reminders according to a location. And that's assuming that you've set your home location and your work location and so on inside of your phone. Now there is another location option that I did not show you here, but you may see it in some of Apple's advertising. You can ask Siri to remind you of something when you get in your car. But be aware that that option only works if you have your phone paired with a CarPlay stereo system in your car. Now what's really nice here is I can come here to the Reminders app and I can see all of these reminders, and there's an icon next to each one. And if I tap on that icon, it'll take me back to whatever I was doing when I asked Siri to remind me of this thing. So let me go back to Reminders again. And if I want to go back to that email, I can tap on the email icon next to this reminder, and it'll show me that email message there. And another quick way of going back to Reminders, of course, is to just hit the Back to Reminders button up in the top left corner. Okay, so I'm done here, so I'll go back to the home screen. So here's another new voice command. In previous versions of iOS, I could activate Siri and I could say, show me my photos. And of course, the Photos app will open and show me my photos. Let me go back to the home screen. But now with Siri, I can be much more specific. I could say something like, show me photos I took in Switzerland. So of course, all of the photos that I shoot on my iPhone are tagged with a geolocation. And now Siri is smart enough to go into the Photos app and show me pictures I took in specific locations. And I can be even more specific. If instead of searching for a country, I want to search for photos I took in a specific city, I could say, show me photos I took in London. Or how about this? There have been so many times that I've wanted to show a specific picture to somebody from my photo collection, and I have to spend lots of time scrolling through my pictures to find what I'm looking for. This feature is really going to save me a lot of time. Now, another interesting thing here is that in iOS 9, the Photos app will automatically sort pictures that you've taken in the panorama mode or with the front-facing camera and so on. So I can even do something like this. Show me selfies that I took in London. And so it jumps into my photos library, and using the word selfies, it sorts down to pictures that I took with the front-facing camera. I could have also said, show me panoramas I took in London, or show me screenshots, and that would have worked as well. So you should give some of these new voice commands a try. I've already found them to be really helpful for me, especially when I'm trying to find specific photos.
I think that's another one that I'll use. I mean, I've got, since I have a big phone with a lot of storage, I mean, I have like 17,000 photos on my phone. So finding a photo or finding a group of photos sometimes can be a challenge. But with this, it seems to work pretty well. Although in testing it out, I found that some of my geotags were incorrect. And so, like I'd say, show me pictures of photos in Park City, and all of a sudden some Christmas photos would pop up from Naples. And I'm sure that was because when I imported them, I just put Park City at the top, and that's where most of them were taken, and it somehow just made them all Park City, or yeah, all Park City. So I found some mistakes like that, and that leads me to a question for George. One of the deficiencies of the new photo app on the Mac is you cannot change the geotag. So I Googled that, and it said, well, just go into iPhotos and export the photos you want to change. Import them into iPhotos, change the geotag, and then export them back out and import them. And when I tried to do that and export them out, the photos were there, but it says I can't find the original photos, and it won't do it. Then it talked about using the program thing, I forget what they call it,
Review,
not preview.
image capture.
No, the real programming language thing that is at the bottom that you can get into.
Terminal?
Terminal, talk about using terminal, but I thought there has to be an easier way. How do you do it? You do it through preview?
I don't change.
You don't change them.
But I thought I just read that you can change, that you can. I think I just read it.
There was an update, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Was there an update that you could change them? It must have been a brand new update because I
Yes.
couldn't find it.
It's part of, I think it's part of El Capitan. El Capitan.
Well, I've got El Capitan, but is it part of El Capitan or the Photos app on El Capitan?
It's part of the Photos app on El Capitan.
If you happen to see that article, shoot them. Okay, but anyhow, I think I have played with this, and this is a lot of fun to play with.
Sorry to go back to the Siri, 6 and 6S for that reminder stuff, or just 6S?
No, this is good for any iOS.
With 9, so it's 9
device.
specific.
Yes, 9 specific, yes.
It's great for music too, if you want to play a.
Yes, if you want to play a specific song, or you want to see a certain artist, it's really good for that as well. Thank you for pointing that out. How many here have already updated to iOS, how many haven't updated to iOS 9? Yeah. Okay, my only question is, why are you waiting? Because it's,
When you do that,
Ruth, wait until she's 100.
I had trouble with.
which version are you on? Bruce? Are you on iOS 8? Okay.
I had trouble when I updated my iPad.
Yes.
It turned it into a brick. I had to bring it to the store and they had to reset everything. And they said, try it, when you do it, try it plugged into your Ethernet rather than do it over the wireless.
Okay, good point.
Through iTunes, is what are you saying through iTunes instead of do the?
I went through iTunes, but I did it wirelessly and it wouldn't do it. It locked up and.
I didn't have any problem. I did it right over the line. How many here have the watch? Okay. I can tell you that, and you probably know this, if you want to save your watch data, and I'm a fanatic on the fitness stuff on the watch, and I like to keep all my data. What you have to do is you have to do a encrypted backup of your iOS iPhone on your computer through iTunes. You have to do on this computer encrypted backup, and you have to, and it even says in small print underneath that this way other settings, including your watch data, will come back. And even if you restore based on your iCloud data, which I did when I was at the Apple store, as soon as I got home, I erased all data and settings, and then I set it up again and did got the encrypted one and got all my data back. Any questions on that? Yes.
I have another question, and that is, if you delete your iPads, how can you get recover if your, this has to do with the computer more than it has to do with the phone?
If you delete your iPad, delete it.
If you delete everything you've archived in emails, and trying to recover them, I haven't been able to do so, and I just didn't have the time to take.
You've actually gone in and deleted them from the archive folders on your computer. I don't know if there's any way to get that back.
Was it in the cloud?
I looked on the cloud and I couldn't see anything, but at the time I really didn't have time to address that part of it. It was while I was doing something else.
But it was on the computer, and it was like in Google, where they have
No, it was on
Comcast, so.
So I thought, I looked quickly and I couldn't find it, and I thought, that's a question I want to bring to the group.
I'm not a Comcast mail person at all.
How about
Yes.
time machine?
The only thing that you could possibly do is go to Comcast.net and check into, and go on your webmail and see. But my guess is you must have Comcast set up as an INAP, because it doesn't. Is Comcast set up as an INAP?
I don't know.
Okay. You can try that, but I know if with Google Mail, anything in the archive, if I delete it from the archive, it deletes it from
Oh, it
the
deletes
account.
it, okay.
But with Comcast, you might want to check the webmail and, go into all the
We're
mail
having an
boxes.
issue in our development, and they're getting rid of Comcast, so I didn't want to make these changes at this time because we're right in the middle of going over to, what are you getting, Maryland Firewire or?
Well, no, they're just talking about Hotwire.
Hotwire, that's what they're doing in our place. And there's been
Yeah,
issues
iCloud,
already.
you said might work? I'm sorry, Time Machine, Jim?
Well, I'm just asking, could time
Time
machine?
Machine, but I'm having a problem with Time Machine
Ah.
too. So I'm
Okay.
kind of holding them to do anything until this changeover occurs.
What I did was Comcast, because that's what I have,
is I forwarded all my Comcast mail to Gmail. Because I didn't want to use the Comcast
That's
mail.
what I do.
And that's, I think you can do it on the website. I think it's fairly
Yes.
easy.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that reminds me of something I want to show real quick. I got a video on the notes, but one of the things that they had a lot of features to Notes, and I use the Notes app a lot. So this is the Notes app, and one of the things that they do is when you delete Notes now, it goes into this recently deleted folder, and it stays there for 30 days. So if you accidentally delete a note that was important, then it stays there for 30 days. And that's a neat new feature. I like that. Okay. The other neat feature in Notes that I discovered sort of accidentally was, Vicki publishes a travel letter, used to, and I think she's in the process of getting back into that a little bit. And she did one on the fly fishing in the Middle Provo, which is out near Park City, where her husband does a lot of fly fishing, and I've done some fly fishing. And we had our first NMUG meeting with Vicki and I and our spouses in Park City a few weeks ago. And this subject came up, and so she said, "Oh, well, I'll send you the article." And she sent it to me, and it was a web page, and one of the options on a web page now is that you can create a note of the web page. And so this is what it looks like. And if I hit on that, it takes me actually into Safari, and it brings up the actual article, which is pretty neat. So, and I'll show you how that works. So if you go to, let me see what I want to do here. Okay, so here's a recipe. If you go to the, I think it was, I hope I'm doing this right. If you go right up to here, okay, and one of the items is note. So if you hit note, that'll be the note, and it'll say choose note, and I'll say create a new note. That's good. And so I'll save that, and now if I go back to notes, it should be there. There it is. And that's a pretty neat feature. Again, that's iOS 9, any device, where you can actually make a note of the entire web page. And you can do the same thing in if you're in Safari, in there, you can save them as well. But if you want to make a note out of a page, you can now do it. Okay, so I want to get back into this guy and go over a little bit more into Siri. Let's skip down to Hey Siri.
In the previous version of iOS, there was a feature where you could activate Siri simply by saying, "Hey Siri." Then Siri would respond and you could give it a voice command without touching your phone. There was one limitation though. The Hey Siri function only works when your iPhone or iPad is plugged into power. This made it much less likely that you would activate somebody else's phone when you said, "Hey Siri." Now with iOS 9, there are two improvements to the Hey Siri function. First, when you turn on the Hey Siri option, you will train Siri to recognize your voice, which will make it more effective in responding to the Hey Siri call. And the second improvement is that if you use an iPhone 6s, you can activate Siri with the Hey Siri command, even when your device is not plugged into power. So to get this set up and running, I'll need to activate Hey Siri, and I'll need to train it to recognize my voice. It's actually really simple. There are a few ways that you can get to the option to set up and configure Siri for your voice. If you're setting up an iPhone for the first time, when you go through the initial setup process, at a certain point, you'll see a screen like this. You could take the opportunity to go through the Siri setup process here. Just hit the Set Up Siri button and go through the prompts. If you don't want to set up Siri during the initial setup process for your phone, that's fine. You can just tap the button that says Turn on Siri later. Then use the other method that we're about to see. So that's one way to get to this. The other option is if you're working with an iPhone that has already been set up. The other option is if you're working with an iPhone that has already been set up, for example, maybe you just upgraded to iOS 9, to get to the settings to set up Hey Siri, you just go into Settings on your iPhone, then go into General, to the section for Siri, and I'm going to first turn Siri on by flipping this switch, and I'll confirm that I'm going to enable Siri. Now on your device, you may already have Siri turned on in general, but you may not have the option to allow Hey Siri enabled. That's this second switch down here. So let's turn on the Hey Siri function. So I'll flip this switch to turn it on, and now I need to train it to recognize my voice. To do that, I'm going to hit Setup Now, and then I'm going to go through the prompts. When I do this, it's going to ask me to read several phrases. So I'm going to do that now, so I'll hit Setup Now, and I'll go through that. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri, how's the weather today? Hey Siri, it's me. And now it's all set up. I'll hit Done. Both of these switches are on. It's trained to recognize my voice, and I'll go to the home screen. So now I can activate Siri anytime by just saying, Hey Siri, what's the weather like in London?
Today, the temperature will range between 43 degrees and 64 degrees. The weather looks pretty mixed tomorrow through October 4th, 2015, with temperatures ranging from 45 degrees to 64 degrees.
And since I'm using an iPhone 6S, I do not have to plug the iPhone into power. I can activate it whenever I want by just saying, Hey Siri, set an alarm for 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay, I set an alarm for 7 a.m.
So with a very small amount of training, Siri can now be more effectively responsive to a simple voice activation. And if you're using an iPhone 6S, you can use this feature anytime, even when your device is not plugged into power. And you're probably not going to activate somebody else's phone because Siri is configured to respond to your voice.
Any questions on that? Yes.
Another question, I'm John.
John?
When you have an accent, Siri has a problem. And it doesn't work 3 times. I mean, I have to work with it, stroke it a little bit.
But you did get it to work. Did you go through this process?
Yeah, I actually went to the, for just a class to the Apple store.
Uh-huh.
One-on-one. And I have to speak slow and clear English before she won't understand.
Okay, good point.
So this should work on
Yes,
multilingual Siri.
yes.
I don't know if it makes you feel any better, but my husband does not have an accent, and he has tremendous problems with Siri.
Even with the new iOS 9,
Yeah.
did he go through this process?
Well, he doesn't have,
The
we
Hey
don't
Siri?
have the new phone to set up Hey Siri, but I mean,
Okay.
even just dictating in or something, I keep telling him he mumbles, but I don't know. So, don't feel badly.
Well, you don't need the new phone. I set it up on my phone.
Right.
I got a 5S. You just need the iOS 9.
Right.
Right, you need iOS 9. But I think his is a 4, isn't it?
No, it's a 6, it's a
6?
6.
Yeah. It might help him if he goes through this Hey Siri setup, which you can do. And it's not
Well, I
apparent.
mean, it recognizes his voice. That's not an issue. It just doesn't understand what he's saying.
Oh.
And
Well, that's the same as you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't understand what he's
Maybe if I
saying
change it to the male voice, it'll work better.
either. You just told him, well, I told you I could never understand what you're saying half the time. Okay, there's one more on Siri that I'm going to do because it's a sort of a hot topic, so.
In addition to new voice commands, Siri and Spotlight work together to give you new search options as well as proactive suggestions based on your use, so you can more easily access apps and information that you need. So in iOS 9, there are a few ways of performing a search on your device. Of course, you could use voice commands, but that's not what we're looking at here in this movie. You can swipe down on the home screen and a Spotlight search bar will appear. From here, you can type in your search term. It's also giving me app suggestions. In iOS 9, Siri is designed to learn about you, including which apps you use at different times. So these suggested apps will change throughout the day. If you always check your mail first thing in the morning, then the Mail app will appear here when you look at it at 7 a.m. If you always listen to podcasts in the evening, then the Podcast app will probably appear here at night. So your suggested apps will certainly be different from mine, and they will change as time goes on. So from here, I could tap on any of these suggested app icons to launch an app, or I could type in my search. And this gives me the opportunity to check out some of the new search options. So for example, you can get sports scores just by searching for the name of your favorite team. So I'm going to type in Giants. Now I want to point out that I did not hit the search button. I just typed in the word and the information that it found popped up on the screen. There's a game that the Giants are currently playing right now, so it gives me the current score. Now if I search for a different team that did not have a game currently taking place, so for example I'll search for a football team, it'll just give me the score of their most recent game. You can also search for stock quotes. Just by typing in the stock symbol for the company that you're interested in, it'll give you the stock quote. Or you can check out weather in different locations with a search. So I'm going to search for weather in London. And it gives me a weather report for London. Okay, so I'm going to clear this search. I'm going to hit the X up in the search field. I'm going to hit cancel. And so we've seen one way of doing searches. But I can also flip over to the dedicated Spotlight search screen just by swiping all the way over to the left. So this is the search screen. In addition to having the option to do a search, this screen is also dedicated to those proactive suggestions. I see suggested apps listed, but I also see suggested contacts. These are the people that I contact the most at specific times of day. So I could tap on Garrick here, and then it'll give me buttons to call him on the phone, send a text message, or initiate a phone call. If I don't want to do any of those, I can just tap on Garrick again, and it goes back to that list of people. Below that, I see suggested apps. We talked about that a moment ago. But on this screen, I see 4 suggested apps. But if I hit show more, I can see another row. So I can see up to 8 suggested apps on this screen. Below that, I see options for quick searches for nearby places. And this is something we'll talk about more in the movie dedicated to the Maps app. But I can use any of these to quickly do a search in the Maps. So if I want to find a gas station close by, I'll just tap on the gas button. It'll do a quick search in Maps for a gas station near my current location. And I can very easily go back to the search screen by using the back button up in the top left. Below the suggested nearby places is a constantly updating feed of news stories. These articles tie into the News app. So if I tap on one of these stories, it'll open up the News app and it'll load the full text of that story. And again, I can easily go back to the search screen by tapping on the back button in the top left. So I can use these proactive suggestions, or I could flip through the news feed, but I might want to do a search right here on the search screen as well. So let's look at some options we have. I'm going to tap on the search field, And I'm going to do a search for sushi. So of course, this is going to give me results on the maps for sushi places nearby, and it's going to give me suggested websites and videos on the web. But what's really interesting here is it also searches my email messages and my text messages. So if I tap here, it would take me straight to a text message conversation where I have the word sushi. I'm going to hit back to search up in the top left. Or I could select this email message, and it'll jump me over to an email that I sent to Garrick where I mentioned the word sushi. And again, I'll go back. That's just one example. I'm going to clear this search again. Let me search for something else. Just going to search for London. So this is handy. It found a contact in my address book that is relevant to this search term. My friend John, who lives in London. When a contact comes up in a spotlight search in iOS 9, I have buttons for sending a text message or calling this person on the phone. So I could tap on the messages button, it jumps me over to messages, and I could send a text message. Or I could go back, and if I want to see more information about John, I can just tap on his name, and it'll take me to his address book listing in my contacts. And one more time, I'm going to go back to the search by hitting the back button in the top left. So there's a lot to work with here, but it's all about getting you the information that you need as quickly as possible. And sometimes that means your device will offer something to you before you even do a search. I have intuitive searching, new search options, suggested apps, contacts, and locations, and even more with these new Spotlight tools.
Okay.
That's not an iPad 2, is it? That's great.
I don't know if it's an iPad 2 or not. I know it's an iOS 9 feature. And it is one, Don, you were asking about things I've been using. It is one I use. There it is on the iPad.
But where's the back button he's talking about?
Okay, I want to show you that. So let's say I'm here and I go to YouTube. Okay, and then there should be a back button. I don't see it. It's not coming up. Maybe the YouTube thing's got to play first. No, it's not there. Let's try it again. Let's try Safari. Now, there's usually a back button. I don't know why it's not showing. Let's see if I go to coffee.
Mitch?
Yeah, here, if I go to coffee places, see the back button right there? It does show on a lot of screens, and it'll take me right back to where I was.
Oh, so it's just not a button, it's a phrase. What is this, back to search?
Yeah, back to search. Yes.
I was just gonna say, the only time I ever see it and use it is when I go and open a website from an email. In other
Yes.
words, if the link is in the email and it takes me to the website in Safari,
Yes.
there will be the back button that will take me back to the email.
Yeah, and I think I have one of those here. Let's just look at that real quick. So if I go to, I think that this guy sent me one here. Let's just see. Here's one right here. Yep. So there is the back button.
Okay. I was looking for
So
Rob.
then now that'll take me right back to the mail. And that's sort of a handy little feature. It's not,
It's really nice. I get the headline email of the New York Times that just has certain articles in it. It's really great to go back and forth between Safari and email
Yeah.
when you have those multiple choices.
yeah, and so like down here is their news stuff, which I don't care for the news app, but
How do you put the news thing in there? Mine doesn't have that down at the bottom.
I don't know if it has it on the phone or not. I know it has it on here. Let me just
You have to set it up.
Yeah, did you set it up?
No.
It's an app.
Oh.
It's an app that comes on the device, and here it is, right here.
The red app, the red.
Okay? So you need to go in there, and it'll ask you to set it up and do do different things, choose some things.
Ask you to choose which
Which-
news you want to get.
Yeah, which news you want to get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know that it's under settings, but one of the things that's under settings that I wanted to show you is if we, yeah, you can search. So let's just see if news is here. Yeah. News and privacy. So one of the things that you can do now is you can search for things in your settings. So if we go to news and privacy, show news stories and preview. That might be it, I'm not sure. But that's the news settings right there. So if you're in here and you say, I forgot where that password stuff is. Ah, there it is. Setting up the password. And it'll take you. This is actually setting up restrictions. Okay? Touch ID. You know, when you try to start typing in passcode, oh, there's where I set up that Touch ID stuff. So that's a new feature that's really quite handy. Again, settings, and then if you're not seeing it, go right up to the top of the airplane mode and just type in what you're looking for. So I wonder what happens if I type in keyboard. So keyboard, this would be the one where we change the lowercase thing. So that's really nice because in settings, you know, somebody say, how do you change that keyboard thing? And I'll say, I just did it last week, but there's so many things I can't remember. Well, now you can search for a lot of those things, and that's really nice. Okay, let me get back in here and see what else this guy, I don't think it's this one. Nope. It's this one. Yeah, here we go. So we pretty much covered Siri. These keyboard functions are pretty neat, and we ought to talk about those because they're different.
In this movie, I want to look at two new features for the on-screen keyboard in iOS 9. Now for this, I'm going to use an iPad because one of these two new features is only available on the iPad. But we'll start with a feature that will work on all iOS devices, including the iPhone and iPod Touch. So I need an app where I might type in some text. So I'm going to launch the Mail app. I have a message here, so I'm just going to reply to that so we've got somewhere we can type. My cursor is already in the body of the email message, so my on-screen keyboard has appeared. Now there's one thing I want you to notice. The buttons on the keyboard are going to change to show whether I'm typing in a capital letter or a lowercase letter. So when you look at the keyboard, of course all of the keys are labeled, but they're labeled in capital letters. That's because the first letter of any sentence, of course, is going to be a capital letter. As soon as I start typing, you'll see those keys will change to show me that the next letter I'm going to type will be lowercase. So I'll type that in, comma, space. Now, the next letter I want to type will be a capital letter, and we know how to do this. We just hit the Shift key on the far left or far right side of the keyboard, but you'll see that the labels on the keys change again to show me I'm about to type in a capital letter. And as I continue to type, those labels will change, so I always know whether I'm about to type in a capital letter or a lowercase letter. This is a pretty small feature, but I think it's something that you're going to get used to and you're going to start to depend on. As you're typing anywhere on your iPhone or iPad, you're always going to know if you're about to type a capital letter or lowercase because those labels on the keys will change. So that feature is available on all iOS devices. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is only available on the iPad. And that feature is the new toolbar. So if you take a look at the top of the keyboard, you'll see a bunch of buttons along this top row. Now, of course, in iOS 8, we did have the buttons for quick type suggestions, Those are the 3 buttons in the middle there. But now in iOS 9, we have a whole bunch of other options. For example, if we look over on the far left side, there's an undo, redo, and a paste button. So if I hit the undo button, which is the button that points to the left, you'll see it will remove the last thing that I typed. If I want it back, I could hit the redo button. Then there's a paste button, but paste usually comes with cut and copy. So the reason we don't see those is because I don't have any text selected. So I'm going to double tap on a word here and use these handles to stretch out my selection. And now the undo and redo buttons have been replaced by cut and copy. So I could copy this text by hitting the copy button. And let me start a new line here. And now if I hit the paste button on the toolbar, it'll paste what I just copied. Now on the far right side, we have some other options. This button with B, I, and U, of course, is going to give me text formatting options. So again, I'm going to highlight some text. Then I'm going to tap on that button in the toolbar, and I could make this text bold, italics, or underlined just by choosing one of those options. Next, you'll see a little camera and paperclip. These are the buttons that you'll use to attach a photo from your photo library, or you can actually attach a file into Mail. But the file attachment options are new features in the Mail app, and I want to spend more time with those, so we're going to talk about those options in a separate movie later in this course, specifically dedicated to Mail. But here's the really interesting thing that I want you to see with these toolbars. These options in the toolbar on the keyboard are going to change depending on which app you're using. So, for example, if I close this, and I'm going to open up the Word app. My cursor is already in my documents, I already have the keyboard here, and you'll see that these toolbars are a little bit different. I do have undo, redo, I have my cut, copy, paste options, and I have my formatting options, but I do not have those buttons for attaching pictures or attaching a file, because that's not really something you do in a Word document. It's something you do in an email message. And if I close this and jump over to the Notes app, now again, the Notes app is another app that has been updated in iOS 9, so there's another movie in this course where we're really going to focus on features here. But for now, I'm going to create a new note. My cursor is in the note, on-screen keyboard appears, and now I have completely different options in the toolbar. I have my undo button, but if I tap on that, I have undo and also paste. Next to that, I have an option for formatting a list or formatting a header. And then on the far right side, I've got a button for attaching a picture or creating a sketch, which is really interesting, and we're going to see that in the movie dedicated to Notes. So this new toolbar is really quite handy, but it's up to the different app developers to put the options in that toolbar that you need for each specific app. So you are going to see different options depending on which app you're using. And those are the 2 new features in the on-screen keyboard in iOS 9.
Yes,
Mitch, when it said, Kathy,
yes,
when it said Word, did they mean Microsoft Word?
yes. So I can see where these would come in handy. Now, I don't, I'll use this on some things, but I gotta tell you, most things that I do, I dictate with Siri, and then I go back and just correct the text if it makes a mistake. So I'm not a big typer. So, which brings me to this next one I want to just spend a little time on, because this is a new nice feature.
Most people
too.
are used to writing and editing text on a computer using a mouse and keyboard. So when we started writing text on touchscreen devices, we had to learn a new way to select text, which was not always so easy. In iOS 9, there's a new set of tools for selecting text and placing your cursor. As handy as these new features are, they're only available on the iPad, not the iPhone. So we're going to stick with the iPad for now. So here I am in an email message where I've already typed in some text, and now I need to go back and make changes. Now I could just tap anywhere on the text to place my cursor, but that can be kind of inaccurate, and it can be difficult to get the cursor in just the right spot. In previous versions of iOS, what you would do is tap and hold. You would see this little magnifying glass, then you would move around, and when you get your cursor to the right spot, you can let go. Now this is still going to work on an iPhone, of course, but it is a little bit slower. On the iPad, you're going to have some new features to make this a little bit quicker. Now, this is one of those features that's really easy to use, but I'm going to need to explain it a little slowly so that you know what's happening. In a moment, I'm going to place 2 fingers on the iPad screen, but I'm not going to leave my fingers in one place for too long. I want to start moving them around fairly quickly. Now, you don't have to rush, you just don't want to sit in one place for more than a second. Okay, so now I'm going to do it. I'll place 2 fingers on the screen, and I'll start moving around. And you'll see as I move my 2 fingers around the screen, it moves my cursor. So I can place my cursor exactly where I want it to be, and then I can let go. Now, you don't have to worry too much about where you place your 2 fingers. You'll see I can place my 2 fingers in the body of the email message and move that cursor around. Or I can place my fingers directly on the keyboard and move them around. And you'll notice if I place my fingers on the keyboard, you'll see that the labels on the keyboard fade away, so I can focus on just moving the cursor. Now, this is not going to work if I place my fingers up in the to field or the subject field or anything like that. Only on the body of the message or the keyboard. But using this technique, it's really a lot faster to move my cursor and place it exactly where I want it to be. So I want my cursor right in front of the word Friday, I can just move it there with my 2 fingers. Pretty easy. Now, there's also a way to use this new feature to select text. And that's why I was so careful to say that you should not leave your fingers in one place. That's because if I touch the screen with 2 fingers and hold them in one spot for a few seconds, my cursor changes to a selection tool. So let's see how this works. I'm going to place 2 fingers on the screen again, but this time I'm going to leave them in place until I see the selection tool activate. And now if I move my 2 fingers around, I can highlight a piece of text. I'll just let go right there, and I've easily highlighted the word Friday. I can always reset again just by tapping anywhere on the body of this message. Then I could move my cursor around. I'll place it there. I'll let go. Now I'll hold 2 fingers on the screen again, wait for the selection cursor, and then I can drag to highlight this text. Now, once I've highlighted the text, I can place 2 fingers on the screen again to change the selection. Or with my finger, I could just grab the handle at the beginning or end of the selected area to change the selection. Either way works just fine. Now, there's one more thing I want to point out that might make this even easier for you. Once you have the selection tool activated, you do not have to keep both fingers on the screen. You can remove one and just leave 1 finger on the screen. So again, I'm going to use 2 fingers to place my cursor, and then I'll let go. Now I'm going to hold 2 fingers on the screen until the selection tool activates. Now I can take one of those fingers off the screen, and using my remaining finger, I can use that to move and highlight my text. And I find that a little bit easier than holding 2 fingers on the screen. So now once you have something selected, you can change that selection, you can delete the text, you can use the formatting tools in the toolbar, whatever you're going to do. So on an iPad and iOS 9, you now have a much easier way to select text and place your cursor.
I think that's pretty cool. Yes?
I have a question, Bernadette, I have a question about reminders. It seems like the reminders has changed. I used to make grocery lists and stuff on it.
Yeah.
But now I can continue using the list I made, but now it doesn't enable me to make any other new lists. Is that transferred to notes or something?
You can make lists in notes, but I think you can still do that in reminders. Let me just look. Add a new list. And you can't, it's
Because you
below,
used to always go to the reminders and then it would just,
yeah, it's below here. I don't know why it's not showing.
because at the top now. I can
It's
use-
right at the bottom. You can't see it. It's cut off. There's an add new list thing right down below here. And I think it's the same on the phone. Is it the same on the phone? For reminders. For reminders,
I don't see that.
there's a plus sign.
Yeah.
There's a little plus sign, and you would just hit the
Yeah.
plus, okay, and
Okay.
that's
'Cause
it.
Before it seemed like you did it right at the top some easy way.
Yeah, I think that's a change.
Okay, good.
But we got time for, are we on a constraint here? Gotta wrap it?
Yeah, we got a few minutes.
Well, I want to start, we're not going to have time finish this one, but I want to start on the, I'm going to go over I'm not going to go over the 3D touch thing. That's the haptic touch where you press and hold down and the phone does different things. So does the watch. And the only reason I'm not going to do it is because a lot of people here do not have the new phone. But they've changed a lot in the notes. And this is a long video, so I don't know if we'll get
The
through
Notes
all
app
of it.
has been a mainstay in iOS for years.
We'll start.
In this version, you're going to see some pretty big updates in this app, giving you much more versatility than simple text-based tools. So I'm going to launch the Notes app here on my iPhone. If this is the first time you're launching the Notes app in iOS 9, you may see this screen telling you that you need to upgrade your notes. The app has the ability to synchronize your notes across multiple devices using iCloud or another online service. If you use iCloud, it will need to upgrade your iCloud Notes library before you can use the new features in Notes. So I'm going to let it upgrade on my device. I'll just hit this button that says Upgrade Notes, and that'll take a moment, and now everything is all set. Now that I'm in the app, I see some categories. I can store notes in my iCloud account or in my Gmail account. The categories depend on which accounts you have set up on your device. So let's take a quick look at settings before we continue. So I'm going to go into Settings, scroll down to Mail, Contacts, and Calendars, and you'll see that I have 2 email accounts set up, iCloud and Gmail. And if I tap on each of these and I scroll through the different options, I can see that Notes syncing is turned on for iCloud. If I go over to Gmail, I can see that Notes syncing is turned on for Gmail as well. So on my device, I can store notes on my iCloud account or my Gmail account. Your device may be different. You might have some other account that supports note syncing. Also, here in Settings, if I take a step back, one more step back, and I'm going to go into the settings for Notes, you'll see there's an option to turn on an On My iPhone account. This would give you another category where you can store notes directly on your device rather than having them stored on an online account. So now if I switch back to the Notes app, I see 3 categories: notes on my iCloud account, on my phone, and on my Gmail account. So I'm going to choose the iCloud category. And of course, I already have a few notes on my iCloud account that I created on another device that have now been synchronized to this device. And I want to create a new note, so I'll hit the New Note button down in the bottom right corner. We can start working on this note. So if you've used the Notes app before, this may look pretty familiar. I'm going to start just by typing shopping list up here at the top. That's the note that I'm going to create. I'll hit Return to create a new line. And I'll type in the first item on my shopping list. So I can just type normal text here just to write something down, but you also get some options for formatting the text and adding other elements. So if I hit this plus button on the note directly above the keyboard, I get some extra options here. So for example, since I'm writing a shopping list, I might want to format this as a checklist. So that's the first button over on the far left here, the one that looks like a check mark with a circle. I'll tap on that, and now this line is formatted as an item in a checklist. I'll hit Return to create another line, type in something else, and each time I hit Return, it creates a new item on this checklist. If I hit Return twice, it starts a new paragraph, thus ending that checklist. So you can start to get an idea of adding more rich content here in Notes. I want to talk more about these options, but first, a few things you should notice. On an iPad, you don't have the plus button to get to these options. On an iPad, these options just appear in the toolbar on the on-screen keyboard. This is something that we talked about in the chapter about the keyboard. That toolbar can change depending on which app you're in, and these are the options that are in the toolbar, specifically in the Notes app. Here's another important note. Right about now, I think there's a percentage of the people watching this video who are really frustrated because they don't see these options. If that's you, here's why you don't see those options. I'm going to hit Done on this note for just a moment. I'm going to hit the back button in the top left and take a look at my categories again. So I'll hit the back button one more time to get to that category screen. If you go into any category other than iCloud or on my phone, you will not see those extra formatting and content tools. If you have your notes stored on a Yahoo account or a Gmail account or any other online account other than iCloud, you can only store simple text-based notes. So if I go into the notes on my Gmail account and I create a new note here, I do not have the plus button above the keyboard. I do not have those extra formatting tools. That explains why some users may not have that. But if you do want to use those rich formatting options and you don't have an iCloud account, then you can always enable this on my phone category and store your notes there. So I'll go back into my iCloud category and back into that note I was working on a moment ago, and we can look more at these formatting options. I can tap anywhere on my note to place my cursor. And
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop there, but there's one other thing I want to show you on notes. I've showed this before, and I use it all the time. So here are my notes, and I use iCloud for my notes. I'm sorry, not notes, reminders. So here are my reminders, and I've got a few lists here, shopping list, I have regular reminders and so on. But I have Costco, because I go to Costco all the time, and I have George over there, right?
Right.
Okay, so you notice I have nothing there. But down at the bottom, and it's sort of cut off here, it'll say, show completed items. Okay, so I'm going to hit that, and these are all the items that are completed that I've bought, that I've had on my Costco list at one time or another. Now, the reason I find this handy is I'm going to Costco, and usually, a lot of times I'm with my wife, I'm saying, well, do we need pizza? Yep, we need pizza. It's not on your diet. Okay, well, what is that? It's not on my diet. All right, we'll get avocados. Yep, we need water, and we need, the kids are coming, we need some fish crackers. We need some chicken breast, and we better get some fruit. Oh yeah, we need baggies. And then I go at the bottom, I go hide, and I go down here and I got a whole list. Oh yeah, I want one of the roasted chickens. And yeah, I just did a check, I need some deodorant. So now I'm done with my list. I've gone through everything that we've gotten there in the past, and there's not, oh, and you want some smoked salmon. Then I go at the bottom, you can't see it, George's got it cut off. It says hide completed. So I go like this, and now here's my list.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I mean, you show
Yeah.
that, and I do that.
Yeah, so then I'm going through Costco, and I'm in there for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm throwing stuff in the cart. I pull up this list, and I say, okay, I got the baggies, got the salmon, got the fruit, got this, and got the water, got this. Oh, I didn't get the roasted chicken yet. Better go over and get that. So then I hit this again, and it refreshes and just shows what I've got left on my list. Now, I find this really to be a time saver because I don't have to keep, my Costco list keeps on getting longer, but of completed items, but you know, we're all creatures of habit, and there's probably 15 or 20 items we buy in Costco regularly, and it's easy to just go down and get them. So I know I'm over time. I thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you next week with Jerry. Are you taking over, Jerry?
No. Yeah, next week I'm running.
Okay, George, you'll be here next week. Thank you very much.
Amen.